I have nearly 10 years of my life on OneDrive, about 200 gigabytes of memories. But the other day I got this pop-up. Something had gone wrong with the subscription, and Microsoft in corpo speak basically said, "Can't pay, we'll take it away." Of course, this wasn't an unfamiliar concept to me, but it did get me thinking. Here I am, basically renting access to my own memories, and in other parts of my life to my music, games, movies, television, video editing software, Photoshop, the list goes on. I asked myself, what does it even mean to own something? I mean, it used to be pretty simple. Look at this. It's a photo album. Inside, there are about 100 photos of me growing up in the 2000s. It's heavy, unipurpose, and definitely wouldn't get saved in a fire. Point is, it's mine. It's not going anywhere. Nobody can take it away from me. Still though, pretty inconvenient, right? If my nan wanted some of these photos, that would involve me taking the photo out of its sleeve, scanning it, sorting it into an appropriate folder, and either uploading it to my phone to send via WhatsApp or emailing it, which has its own limits. But oh, what's that? OneDrive. It's just so bloody convenient. There's absolutely no denying that. Access it anywhere, share it with anyone, never have to worry about a house fire destroying your precious memories. In many ways, it's an improvement. I mean, before the cloud, yes, we did have portable hard drives, and even to this day, people still physically mail drives to each other to transfer large amounts of data cheaply. But I mean, a hard drive can move at most at the speed of plane. The cloud is the speed of light. That sort of convenience is irresistible, so in comes OneDrive among many other services. 1 terabyte of fabulous cloud storage for just $6.99 a month. Oh wait, $9.99 a month? They raised the price on me, those swindlers. Or did they? Turns out the old plan I was on still exists. They've just buried it, making it nearly impossible to find. Now, because I use Google Pay, this option just flat out does not appear for me. But apparently, the $6.99 plan can be found on the cancellation page. This isn't the first time I've encountered this sort of obtuse design, offering a better deal only when you try to cancel, making you feel like you got a good deal when what they're offering should have been available upfront from the start. This sort of thing is part of a bigger bag of tricks that companies use, known as dark or deceptive patterns. And I want to play a game with you. We're going to go through some examples of dark or deceptive patterns, and I want you to count just how many of these you've come across before. Ready? See here how there's 4 offers but no prices. See here how the bunch of bananas is measured in dollars per bunch and the other in dollars per pound. Notice how the lowest price plan here is hidden behind this grey button. All of these things make it a lot more difficult for you to compare your options, and this is a practice called comparison prevention. This is confirm shaming, using emotional manipulation to try and stop you from saying no to something. Here's an example of fake social proof, creating a quote, illusion of credibility and popularity for a product using fake reviews, testimonials, or activity messages. Here's a great example of trick wording. Click here if you don't want to receive marketing. You may have seen these stock counters before, but they're usually just a trick to create a false sense of urgency to push you to checkout. Same thing with the sale countdown timers like this. Here is an example of forced action, where you literally cannot sign up to this service without also being enrolled into their newsletter. Here you can see hidden costs which pop up right at the end of checkout. And this is my personal favorite, the Roach Motel. This usually refers to services that are easy to subscribe to, but difficult to unsubscribe from. Just look at this UK magazine, which requires you to either call, email, or live chat to cancel, as well as having your membership number. Or look at Document Library Script, who takes you on a multi-page journey of justifying yourself, alternative offers and usage statistics before you're finally allowed to cancel. And let me give you another example and you can decide which is the worst. Adobe's wonderful offer. Cancel your 12-month plan early and you must pay upfront 50% of the total remaining cost as an early cancellation fee. Editor's note. In the US, a click to cancel rule proposed by the FTC, meant to go into effect on Monday the 14th of July, has just been blocked by a federal appeals court. So don't expect this process to get easier anytime soon. So, how many of these have you encountered before? I'm willing to bet nearly all of them. Research by the University of Zurich in 2019 found that of 240 free trending apps, 95% had used dark or deceptive patterns, with an average of 7 dark patterns being used per app. How does it make you feel knowing that? I mean, it's so blatant when you know what to look for, yet I know that this trickery has worked on me in the past. Of course, all of these tricks have one goal: to separate you from your money and ultimately your control. But it's one thing to see these tricks in a list, it's another to experience them yourself when you're trying to do something, in the real world. And that brings me to my own descent into subscription hell. Game of Thrones, I was extremely late to it. In fact, it wasn't until 4 years after the show finished that I finally decided I was going to watch it. So here it is, 2023, I've just graduated uni, got a new TV, and I decided that it was time. Now in my mind, after hyping it up in my head for 10 years, I wanted to really experience the show. I wanted to watch it in the best possible quality, legally. So I have a question for you. How hard do you think that would be to do in the UK? Well, as it turns out, quite bloody hard, at least at the time. You basically had 2 options. Option 1, buy the 4K Blu-ray for What? Throw in a decent Blu-ray player and a cable and we're talking nearly £500 to watch a single show. So I had to think of another way around. What about HBO Max? Well, it doesn't exist here in the UK. A UK broadcaster, Sky, owns the rights to HBO shows over here and puts the shows on a service called Now. Okay, fine, I guess. Let's subscribe to Now, since it is my only choice, I thought. The name Now might not be familiar to you, but I guarantee that their tactics will be, because as it turned out, even the sign-up process for this service was like navigating a minefield. Firstly, let me show you their subscription page. You're greeted with 5 different packages. That's okay, we just want the entertainment one. Now we get 3 more options. You see the 6-month saver and think, wow, that's obviously the best deal. I mean, it looks just like the $9.99 a month option, but cheaper, right? But the $6.99 deal is better worded as cancel early and we'll just keep charging you for the full 6 months. No refunds, no take-backsies. Oh hey, a deceptive pattern out in the wild. The Roach Motel. Easy to get in, a nightmare to get out. Editor's note 2. In the wild, I found this deal being offered with what I would consider to be trick wording. $6.99 a month, cancel any time. The fine print only states that if cancelled, you cannot reactivate the offer. No mention that you'll actually continue to be charged. Now back to the main video. You see, this offer for the base subscription only allows you to stream in 720p. For a show like Game of Thrones, which has now been entirely mastered in 4K, that means you're only seeing about 11% of the pixels you should be seeing. You're paying quite literally for a fraction of the experience. So to remedy this, Now gives you the option to pay more money to get 1080p streaming, aka 25% of the original quality of Game of Thrones. They call this the Boost package, and are so generous that they actually offer you a 7-day free trial of it, so you don't pay any extra on the day of purchase. Now, it does say on their website, after 7 days, it's £6 a month unless cancelled, which to be clear is £6 a month on top of the base subscription. At no point during the checkout process, though, do you ever see the number $12.99, which is your actual cost after 7 days. So with that in mind, does the free trial still seem quite so benevolent, or is it just sleight of hand to get you to spend more money without realizing it? Because guess what? They actually pull this trick not once, but twice. After the Boost package offer, they offer another 7-day free trial of their cinema package, after which it's $9.99 a month. I actually fell for this one at the time. For whatever reason, I interpreted it as after the free trial, your subscription continues at $9.99 a month total, i.e. it cancels out the $6.99 offer. But that is not the case. In fact, if you get the Boost and cinema package, after 6 months, your subscription could be as high as $25.98 a month. That's over $35 for one streaming service that doesn't even make the shows it keeps behind a paywall, and didn't even at that time offer you the option to watch the show in the quality it was originally filmed in. You had to settle for less. In the end, I ended up quitting on Now and using a VPN and a bunch of trickery to watch Game of Thrones on HBO Max, which at the time was called Max, after formerly being called HBO Max. Did you know that it apparently cost $155 million in consulting fees to make these brave decisions? Anyway, back to Now. Now did change things. They have added a 4K streaming option, but that's not the point. It doesn't change the fact that Now is a parasite on people like us, and that their sole purpose is to suck money out of our wallets. But here's the thing. Now is just a niche regional streaming service, a small part of a much wider overall problem. Fracturing content across dozens of platforms, a greed-fueled race to the bottom of who can get the most money out of us. Netflix was at one point the mecca of film and TV entertainment, particularly in the 2010s, but they knew what was coming. They knew they couldn't survive on licensed content forever, so they pumped money into originals. And right they were. Why share a slice of the pie when we can have our own walled garden? That was the thinking of Disney, NBC, Paramount. Why is Paramount Plus a thing, by the way? And why does it have 79 million subscribers? Is it because of SpongeBob? It can't just be SpongeBob. Oh, right. Yeah, I almost forgot. The streaming boom. Lockdown. 2020. Everyone was indoors, and so they watched more TV. Streaming services thrived. Sometimes on questionable content, like Tiger King, but other times on some truly killer media. Speaking on the 2020s more generally, we've had shows like Shogun, Severance, The Penguin, The Boys, Arcane, Andor, all amazing, but all on different platforms, at least in the US. Hulu, Apple TV+, HBO Max, Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, Disney+, that's 6 different streaming services right there. I mean, we used to have what, like 2? Now we have to pay more for less content, and don't even get me started on the fact that the cheapest tier of these services are increasingly becoming ad-supported. To subscribe to all of these services ad-free, you could be paying up to $87 a month, and that's including the Disney Plus Hulu bundle. I mean, we're talking about over $1,000 a year here. That's hardly pocket change. You can see why this system, monthly recurring revenue, is a holy grail of business. A predictable income stream, a direct relationship with you, tons of data on your habits, all while locking you into their ecosystem. But here's the thing. When being a paying legal customer feels like you're being treated like a fool, when the right way of doing things starts to feel wrong, doesn't it make you want to just pack up your stuff, leave it all behind and sail the high seas? See, our frustration with streaming services is just one symptom of a much deeper problem: the slow, deliberate erosion of the control we have over the things we consume. To show you the consequences of this, let me take you to the world of video games. In the physical world, your rights are protected by something called the first sale doctrine. It means that when you buy a book or a record or a game, it's yours. You can sell it, lend it, use it as a coaster, whatever. Online, we usually give that right away, often without even realizing it, with the tap of an agree checkbox on a seemingly endless end-user license agreement. Usually, when we buy stuff online, what we're actually buying isn't the product itself, but a license to use the product, a license that can be revoked at any time. So what happens when you pay full price for something you believe you own, only to have it taken away from you? That question brings me finally to video games. Recently, I've been quite enjoying a racing game, The Crew Motorfest. It's the third entry in the Crew series, and whilst it's been fun, I have had a nagging thought in the back of my head the whole time: I probably won't be able to play this game ever again in a few years. But why do I think that? Well, because the first Crew game has been made unplayable and unbuyable by its developer, Ubisoft. Now, usually when these things happen to a game, it becomes abandonware and it's preserved through piracy. That's not the case for The Crew. The Crew never had an offline mode, and Ubisoft never updated the game to add one in. They just shut the game off forever. So what about those people who spent $60 to buy it? Do they get refunds, reimbursement? No, absolutely not. Their money now exists solely in Ubisoft's bank account. If a person did this, you call it theft or fraud. When a corporation does it, they face no consequences, and the defense is always the same: you didn't buy the game, you bought a license, and that's in the terms of service. Now, to be fair, online games cost money to maintain, servers aren't free, and I get that a company can't support a game with a dwindling player base forever. But there's a difference between ending support and actively revoking access to a product people paid for. What we're talking about here is basically digital robbery, and the most infuriating part is that what Ubisoft did was totally legal. This whole fiasco planted a seed, particularly in a man named Ross Scott, who decided to launch a movement called Stop Killing Games, fighting for legislation to stop future games from facing the same fate as The Crew. If you're an EU citizen and feel strongly about protecting what you own, feel free to check it out at the link below. You know, all of this talk about licenses and subscriptions got me thinking about a statement I've heard a lot recently: if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. I think there's truth to the phrase that piracy is a service problem. Nowadays, I often feel like it provides a better service than legal counterparts. A pirated movie, for example, is zero cost, ad-free, highest available resolution, often with HDR or Dolby Vision, and it's yours to keep forever. No rent this movie for 48 hours nonsense. And with tools like Plex or Jellyfin, you can create your own personal watch anywhere Netflix. The downsides? Well, it is illegal, and torrents can be a hassle, and sourcing can sometimes be a pain. But remember earlier when I mentioned the trickery required to watch HBO Max in the UK? Well, here is what I meant by that: a convoluted maze of setting up VPNs on TVs, region-locked accounts, and payment workarounds. Compare that to torrenting, which is like 3 clicks, and it's not hard to see why people choose the simpler path. When companies build their services to be inconvenient and overpriced, they cannot be surprised when people seek out a superior alternative. And if these companies continue on their path of reckless greed, it will be like a snake eating its own tail. I think in real time, we're witnessing the birth of a whole new generation of pirates. Of course, I don't think piracy is the ultimate answer. If no one buys anything, nothing will get made, at least in a capitalist society. So what's the answer? Well, if you feel strongly about ownership, then there are things we can do to make sure that the control remains in our hands, not those of large corporations. That could mean buying a Blu-ray of a film you love if you believe the price to be fair. That could mean starting your own NAS or at-home server. DIY cloud storage will require a bit of know-how and a pretty high setup cost as compared to a subscription, but you'll never have to worry about your data being held hostage because you didn't pay your $10 a month. We can also continue to fight for legislation that protects people from anti-consumer practices and ensures that we don't fall into a world of digital serfdom. Because at the moment, I feel like that's the way things are going. We're paying rent on our own culture, our memories, our tools. I barely even touched on the business world in this video, but they're probably the worst offenders of all. Imagine telling a blacksmith that they had to pay a monthly hammer rent or their hammer would be taken away from them. It's absurd, yet that's the world creative professionals live in. But with all that said, I'll finish with this. Corporations would love nothing more than a world where we have no choice but to rent everything for a monthly fee. They're betting that we will trade ownership for convenience, become users instead of owners. But for now, we still have a choice. We can still decide to own, and we can still choose to be free.